going to start the session off today with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we're situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Ojibwe, Adawa, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We also acknowledge that the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee nations have walked on this territory over time. In times of great change, we recognize more than ever the importance of honoring Indigenous history and culture, and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation, respect, and good health with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. I'd like to call President Barb Fisher up to the podium.
Well, good morning, everybody, and good to see that everybody who was here yesterday is looking fresh and ready for more. That's a great thing because we're going to need more every day, and really appreciate people being here in a timely manner. Sorry for the little lateness, but here we are. So the meeting will begin at, I guess, 10:10. So what we'd like to do is you have an agenda. And you know what's going to happen today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Anybody that needs a washroom who wasn't here yesterday, just walk outside the door. You'll see the signs. They're everywhere. And we will be breaking at noon. And of course, the meeting otherwise is noted on your agenda. So I'd like to do a little bit in terms of discussion about our last year. And we can be very proud of it. There's been a lot of work, a lot of time put towards making things good and better and stronger. And we've come to this point now where our AGM, we get to report that. So as we look at the 2021-22 year, it's been a year of collaboration. While we navigate out of the global pandemic, we will continue to be active partners in supporting sustainability and growth for rural communities. We spent the last year working with Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, and we know that as FedDev. I think everybody in the room, I think, does. And we are working very hard in developing a modernized framework. While we continue to move forward to enhance systems, best practices, share technology, and administration that will best serve our rural communities, are expected outcomes of that modernization. The CFWO mission is to foster innovation and to stimulate and support businesses within our communities. And we should always bear that in mind when we're doing our work. It's very important that they know that we're there and able to help them. As a board of directors, we've committed to pursuing strength in governance and continued commitment to service excellence. In the year ahead, I am confident that we will continue with the same level of energy and commitment, and I'm excited to support the executive committee as the past president after this meeting, and we'll be engaging with the same energy that we had before, I hope. In the year ahead, I'm confident that we will continue with that same energy and develop new partnerships, investigate potential funding opportunities, pursue and deliver CED projects individually and regionally, expand the SOFI responsibilities, implement our strategic plan. That's the continued implementation. We had a bit of a hiatus with COVID. We came back to it with our new executive director, and we've been working to get involved in that as much as we can, to implement a collaboration jointly with the members of Community Futures Eastern Ontario Association and Community Futures Ontario, both who are represented here today. And I see Kate there as well with the Warden's Council. We gain a strong partnership. We look forward to working with you and expanding our roles together as well. And the other thing that we'd like to do is probably take a little bit of a better look of strengthening our partnerships with the province. It's a mighty force when you get federal and provincial working together, and there are things on our agenda that I think would benefit by that partnership. It's been an honor to represent the Community Futures Western Ontario Association for the past 6 years as an executive member, and for the past year as the board president. To the board of directors, thank you for your counsel, dedication, and diligence. We can be proud of what we have accomplished. We had a few extra meetings this year, and they were called on sometimes on short notice because we were working hard to get through our stuff, and I very much appreciate that support and the great attendance and preparedness you did coming to those meetings. In closing, I would like to thank FedDev for the continued financial and program support. Through the work of the Modernization Committee, we are hopeful for changes that will provide positive and strengthened outcomes. I'd like to recognize and thank Sarah, our Executive Director, for the leadership and dedication she has brought to our association. I would especially like to thank the members of the Executive Committee for their tireless commitment and valued input. Megan, Rick, Martin, who's unable to be here today, Rick's doing his AGM, and Alan. It has been a pleasure working with you. And many thanks to you all for that support. Now we have a very special guest here today with us. And Linda, I know you're very, very busy in your activities, in your role. I hope you have a life as well, because I know you're very busy. And I'd like to introduce Linda Cousineau. She's the Director General of Innovation and Community Development. She's known to a lot of people in the room. She's been with the agency for 12 years. And she's, I think I met you maybe 5 years ago. And I think we'd be correct in saying there's a good transition in terms of working together, building stronger together. And we look forward to that. And I'm assured that with you at the leadership, I think we can look forward to that for sure. Yeah, I know your work history. I won't go too far into this. I think you know you, and we know you a little bit more as well. And you started in private sector, and then you got very involved at the provincial level, starting in the Ministry of Agriculture, then moving to senior roles in finance, MTCU, and smart systems. So I won't take any more time. Linda, please come forward and have a chat with us.
Hi, everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. A very special thank you to Barb for the introduction. That was very kind. Really, really pleased to be here today. It's been so long since we've had the opportunity to meet in person, see some faces I haven't seen in a very, very long time. So it warms my heart to be here, and especially on the special occasion of the 10th anniversary of Sophie. I feel like it's one of these things that I helped to give birth to and then augmented it over time. And here we are 10 years later and lots to celebrate. So je suis vraiment contente d'être ici avec vous et parmi vous aujourd'hui. So I'm going to correct Barb. Something happened just before COVID. I got promoted. I'm now the vice president of our business, of the vice president of our program delivery branch within FedDev Ontario, and it is an honor. I joined, as Barb said, back in 2010, shortly after it was built, and had other senior roles. But I've worked with this community, with other programs, and I always have a warm spot for rural communities across Southern Ontario, having been born and raised, and also lived in many of them myself over the course of my career. So consequently, I am so very proud of the work that we do, along with partners like yourselves, to support Canadian businesses and organizations across this region, and especially the rural businesses that make it such an important part of it. We know that rural communities are very special in that they face some unique challenges, trying to attract the talent, to create jobs and maintain them, and generate that economic growth, and to also be an engine for their communities. What I appreciate a lot is the regional knowledge that you bring, your ability to have that on-the-ground intelligence, and what you bring to those businesses through your mentorship. That's really making a difference on the ground, and that helps these businesses overcome challenges, and we just saw how many and how much that was the case through the COVID pandemic. And I have to say that I look forward weekly to seeing the stats on how you were doing, how many businesses you were supporting, and what other services were being provided. By working together, we're driving economic stability, growth, and job creation. And again, that leads to that resiliency within our communities and highly competitive Canadian rural economies. I want to thank you in particular across the Western Ontario region that you represent. And it gives me such a pleasure to share with you today and to recognize the 10th anniversary of the Southern Ontario Fund for Investment and Innovation, or as we all call it, SOFI, and what it's been doing and how it's given you access to other markets and a grouping of businesses to be able to support, and it's so complementary to other things and other programs and tools that are available out there to businesses. So it's exciting. As you can tell, I have a soft spot for it. So over the last 10 years, I am very pleased to share that I've learned that there's 77 dynamic businesses have received support with $34 million from SOFI, which is incredible to be able to make that difference and to help to see those companies grow and to have been a part of that. And of course, that success would not be possible without the assistance of the Investment Review Committee. That's made up of volunteers. And trust me, I really do understand that there's a lot of hours that are given to make all these things happen within your communities and with your stakeholders. So you spent countless hours reviewing applications, meeting with clients, and sharing your knowledge and making connections to help them thrive. And you give and over and over and over. And some of the things I heard on the ground, particularly through the pandemic, were very heartfelt and touching. So a very deep thank you to all of you, the Investment Review Committee, the volunteers, for your time and expertise, for helping to make SOFI a success. And before I turn things back over to Barb and to Sarah, again, I want to thank everybody here for the work and dedication that you have in giving back to rural communities across Southern Ontario, in particular in Southwestern Ontario. And of course, together, we will continue to work. And Barb, I heard your ambitions, and of course, we'll keep that dialogue going, and we will work together to deliver results for communities across Southern Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And I think on behalf of the association, your presence here today, we're just so grateful that you're able to make it. And we look forward to working with you and really coming up with some great pathway forward and best practices as we go through our modernization efforts and our collaboration. We have a beautiful day here at the Nottawasaga Inn and Resort, and I'm so happy to see all of your faces. We had a great day yesterday, a lot of team building, and we had a SOFI client come in and help us with our plum profiles. So we all know a little bit more about ourselves today as we sit here and just embrace being together and in person. This past year, we've accomplished many strategic goals, feeling confident we'll continue to achieve significant outcomes in the upcoming year. Through the development of strong governance practices, policies, brand awareness, and partnerships, we're preserving and strengthening our stakeholder confidence and in turn building a strong foundation for our 21 communities in Southwestern Ontario. Our Community Futures offices and the Southern Ontario Fund for Investment and Innovation, SOFI, pursued strengths in advocacy, maintained resiliency, and an unwavering commitment to their communities, all while being challenged with the global pandemic. Where we have witnessed at times despair and uncertainty over the past years, we've also witnessed remarkable silver linings, building back stronger communities and a stronger organization. Community Futures Western Ontario and SOFI are proud to work closely with Community Futures Ontario, Community Futures Eastern Ontario, Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, the Economic Developers Council of Ontario, and Equation Angels. It's the continual pursuit of engagement and partnerships which help us deliver client and community-centered business approaches. I would like to thank our board members and volunteers for their time and commitment to this association. Their dedication to fulfill director responsibilities ensures well-represented committees, and we all lead CFWO on a strong pathway to meet our strategic goals and priorities. Lastly, I'd like to acknowledge the ongoing support we receive from our Government of Canada, Federal Economic Development Agency, and our local municipalities. Your financial support and commitment to our Community Futures Western Ontario and SOFI program strengthens our ability to sustain and build our strong communities. This past year, we started to feel the emerging energy of in-person meetings and events, providing opportunities to grow, share, and collaborate. I look forward to evolving and growing together. As we conclude our year, we'd like to recognize that our voices, synergies, and actions are more powerful united while working together. Now, there's a couple of achievements that are coming up very shortly. We're working with students from the University of Waterloo. Cyrus is in the room today. We have created accessible board portals for resources and efficiencies in communications, and we're hoping that those efficiencies will allow us to decrease the amount of emails. I'd like to recognize the hard work that Sherry has done and taken on this year with a solid plan to increase our online communication and our brand awareness and outreach. Sherry also works in collaboration with CFO and CFEO's communication coordinators to strategize, collaborate, and ensure brand consistency for both Community Futures and SOFI. Now, in collaboration with the Eastern Network, we're launching a targeted initiative for our SOFI program called SOFI Rural. This is not a new program, but instead a targeted campaign under the existing SOFI program where we can increase support and investment to innovative, high-growth scale-up businesses located in rural areas all across Southern Ontario. Within the parameters of the existing SOFI program, SOFI Rural provides special incentives through preferred interest rates and amortization periods targeted at rural SMEs. This initiative is an opportunity for the SOFI program to further engage with the CFDCs in support of their regions. Please continue to watch for the announcement as we prepare to launch SOFI Rural. At this time, I'd like to ask Megan Marshall to come up. We just have a couple, a little bit of celebration at this time.
Hi, I am Megan Marshall, the Vice Chair of the Executive Committee, and have been that for 2 years. At this time, I would like to say a special thank you to Al Sim, who's leaving the Executive Committee after serving a total of 8 years. So Alan, if you want to come up. No, thank you, Alan. So there is a token of our appreciation, and if you could all join me in thanking Al for his years of service.
Thank you.
In particular, we would like to thank Al for his attention to detail and promptness. It will be missed.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to just thank everyone for your support, and it's been great working with the past executives and with the team here. We got a great group of general managers, great group of directors. So thank you for your support, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. Thanks.
Okay. Next, we have Barb Fisher. So this is Barb's 6th year serving on the Western Ontario Executive Committee, and she will be moving into the role of past president at the end of today. So we would like to thank Barb for her hard work and dedication and her ability to get through just about anything. Thanks.
You only have to put up with me for 1 more hour, maybe 2, and then I get to backseated for a while. But I know most of you know this program is very dear to my heart, and I won't stop. All I can say is the more engagement by members, the better the association becomes, and we are seeing that happen, which is great. Thanks to you. Thanks to Sarah. Oh.
Okay. I'll take this and you can stay up.
Okay. That was interesting.
I threw you a curveball.
Yeah, that's a curveball. Thank you very much. I'm not much into receiving things, you can tell. Nothing's prepared. Okay. Moving forward with the agenda, we have to move into the duties of the day of an AGM, and that's where we'll go next here. Shuffling some paper first, please. Okay, our first duty is to appoint the secretary for the meeting of today. We need a mover and a seconder to appoint Sherry Cole as secretary to the 11th Annual General Meeting on this September 15th, 2022. Mover, just shout out your name if you will, please. Wendy and Frank for this one, and then just call your name, it'd be great. Then moving on with the agenda. The agenda has been presented. We need to adopt it. Is there anybody that would like to make any amendments to it? Okay, hearing none, can I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda as presented? Todd? And Megan? Jet? Well, yeah, sorry about that. All right, Jillian. And anybody opposed? Okay, the motion's carried. Approval of the previous minutes of the annual general meeting held September the 16th. They were included in your package. Are there any comments or questions? Can I have a mover to approve the minutes of the previous year's annual general meeting of September 16th, 2021? Rose. And Megan? Yep. Just shout out your name, please. All right. Anybody opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Moving on then to the auditor's report. And I do believe Rick has joined us. Am I correct?
I'm
All right.
here
Hi, Rick.
from beautiful downtown here, and I'm sitting with Buck.
It's yours to go.
The auditor's report and financial statements have been circulated to the membership. The audited statements were presented to the CFWO Board of Directors by Brendan Alley from RLB on July 14, 2022, and were approved for submission to the annual meeting. So I'd like to introduce Brendan and ask him to do a review of the audited statements for us, please.
Actually, it's Murray Short here. I'm going to jump in. Brendan will walk through the financial statements themselves, but I've worked with Brendan on the audit for the association for the last 4 years. I will walk through the audit report itself, and then Brendan will cover the statements as mentioned. So Brendan's just sharing his screen here.
Mary, it seems to have froze a bit, so just gonna do one thing.
Okay. If it doesn't work, I can share mine, Brendan. Sorry, bear with us for a minute, folks.
In your AGM package, both digital and in person, you have a copy of the auditor's report. You may refer to that as well.
Brendan, do you want me to try sharing? Oh, Brendan may have disappeared. I'll just share my screen here. I think I should be able to do that. There we go. Hopefully you're seeing the cover page of the financial statements.
You're good to go. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks very much. Sorry about that, folks. So as mentioned, I'll cover off the audit report, and then I'll let Brendan walk through the financial statements, assuming he reconnects here. So the audit report is a clean audit opinion. I'll just cover off a few highlights from that report. The second paragraph here is the primary one of interest for today's meeting. It's our opinion that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. That's the accounting framework under which the association reports its financial results. The rest of the audit report gives some information on the audit process. In this section here, the basis of opinion, it highlights the fact that we're performing our audit under Canadian auditing standards, and highlights the fact that we are independent of the association, which allows us to perform an unbiased audit. So that's important to communicate as part of the report. The next section is the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance. I would just highlight the fact that these are the association's financial statements. They're not our financial statements as your auditors. And so it's up to the association to make the accounting policy choices, to record transactions, to have sufficient internal controls to allow for financial reporting that's free from material misstatement, as well as estimates and accounting policy choices and those sorts of things. Our responsibilities as the association's auditors then are in the following section. And there's a lot of detail here, but basically it highlights the fact that we need to do sufficient testing that within our professional judgment allows us to sign off on the financial statements, to assess management's use of estimates and accounting policy choices and internal controls to ensure that they're appropriate under the circumstances. And we've done all of that, and that allows us to sign off on our audit report. As Rick had mentioned, these financial statements were approved by the board on July the 14th, and so that's the date of our audit report. That's the date that the organization officially accepted the financial statements at the board level. And so with that said, Brendan has rejoined. So Brendan, I'll just keep the financial statements on screen.
Sure.
And mute myself, and you can go ahead.
Okay, so I will start on page, one page more, financial position. So right away you can see cash is up at year end versus prior year, about 4.2 million, and funds held in trust up about 1.2 million. And so these two together have increased about 5.4 million from the prior year. As you can see, your loan receivable combined is down about 4.6 million. So essentially you just collected loan receivables that have cash at year end due to the timing of that collection. On the other receivables line right here, you can see that it's down significantly. So we had collected about 150,000 from Power Noodle last year. So again, just another loan that we're sort of collecting on as the year went on, which is great. And then lastly, you can see your loans receivable, as we noted, is down significantly. And so just close to year end, there was sort of like what we like to call a timing thing where you weren't able to necessarily give out as many loans that you collected. Overall, your total assets up about 800,000, which is good. On the liabilities and fund balances a bit, right away you can see that if we take away the interfund balance or not, your cash is significantly more than your current liabilities. So very liquid position to be in. In fact, your cash alone is about 6 times. That being said, you do earn a lot of investment income from holding cash, so it's not detrimental. I'll see that in a sec. The notes payable you can see, and the accounts payable are down. So really the notes payable is just minor repayments on the loans, and then the accounts payable is just trade AP, and it's just happens to be down a bit this year. And so overall, again, liabilities and fund balances up about 800K from the prior year. On the next statement, we have the statement of changes into assets, and we'll get into the revenues and expenditures in a sec. You can see the surplus you have this year, about 750,000, and it's mostly, well, it's entirely from the Sophie Loan Fund. And then there's offset from other funds like the admin funds, which generally do not generate surplus. And then you have standard transfers down below. So these are essentially your max allowable transfers, or whatever you need per year to transfer from the loan funds to the admin funds. Scrolling down one more page. So this is essentially what happened in the year, the statement of revenues and expenditures. You can see your FedDev contribution on the first line. It's consistent with the prior year. Interest and profit sharing is up significantly. So these are earnings you get from your cash balances, and since your cash balance was on average higher for the whole year, you can see that your interest related to that is also up at year end. And then lastly, your loan interest income is down a bit from the prior year, just due to all the repayments that have happened. Overall, your net income is, or sorry, your revenue is comparable, but it is down a bit from the prior year, and that's mostly just due to people repaying loans, as you saw earlier. On the expenditure side, you can see there's recovery of bad debt. So last year was part of the COVID still. And so essentially what happened was we had a large provision because there was a lot of uncertainty about loans given out or being repaid. But as you can see, things were repaid this year. And so we've had a little bit of a recovery of that bad debt. Business development, 40K this year, 0 last year. It was supposed to be 2 years of 20K to the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, but since it was delayed last year, it was just sent out this year. Last year, you did some training right on the line below that you didn't need this year. Your pro fees are down this year, much less legal, no other sort of internal or professional issues or compliance work. And so that's great. And then you can see your staff expense, even though there were some changes, it's very consistent, down a bit even from the prior year. So overall, since we didn't have such a large bad debt expense, we actually had a recovery. Our expenditures are almost half of what they were last year, and our surplus is about $750,000. The last statement we like to go through is just the cash flow, and this is really just telling you, starting at the surplus we just noted, where does most of your cash come from, and you can see that through operations you generated about $864,000, and then loans receivable collected about $4.6 million, and so that's where all your cash injection came from. Of course, you had some extra funds held in trust and paid down notes payable, so some cash went out for that, but nowhere close to what came in the year. And so your cash balance at year end about $19 million. The last few pages we're going to go through are just explanatory notes. So note 1 just talks about the organization, your tax status, and your purpose. Note 2 goes through all of the high-level accounting policies within your statements, particular fund accounting, revenue recognition, use of estimates, and related to allowance for doubtful accounts mostly, and then financial instruments. Note 3 is also financial instruments, but with a focus on risk. And so you have certain balances and certain characteristics of these balances, which opens up some risk. So we just note the risks here. Note 4 is talking about your loans receivable. So if you want to know the interest rate ranges or the maturity ranges on both the SOFI or the work loan fund, refer to this note. It also incorporates the allowance for doubtful accounts, so you can see, because we don't separately report that on the balance sheet or financial position in this case. Note 5 is just telling you what the funds held in trust are for. Note 6, Note 7, Note 8, these are just explanatory notes of balances that are grouped on the various statements. And then lastly, Note 9 talks about the transfers. I suppose actual lastly is note 10, which is COVID note. Ideally, this note would be gone, but fortunately, earlier in the year, COVID was still around, and it could have still affected and may still affect some major balances. So we kept this note for 1 more year, with the expectation that if all goes well, we can remove it in the next fiscal year. So that is the year in review. If there's any questions about the audit or concerns or anything really, we can take some questions. Go ahead.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none. Rick, would you like to introduce the motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the audited financial statements for fiscal year ending March 31st, 2022, as prepared by RLB LLP.
Can we have a mover and seconder, please? Alan and Karen. Anybody, any questions? Thank you. Sarah? Any questions? Anybody opposed to the motion? Okay, the motion is carried. Rick, if you'd like to continue.
Yes, the next motion is to appoint RLB LLP as the auditors of record for the corporation for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2023.
Megan and Tori. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Anybody opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you very much, Rick, and the auditors for attending the meeting and presenting on our behalf. I'm looking around at different screens here because I've got 3 things in front of me that are moving all at once, so balls in air. All right, we're moving on the agenda then to the approval of all acts of the corporation, inclusive of the committees and members of Western Ontario Community Futures Corporation Association for the fiscal year 2022-23. The motion reads to approve all acts of the corporation, inclusive of the committees and members of the Community Futures Western Ontario, since the last annual meeting of September 16th, 2021. Mover, please. Megan? Seconder, Todd? Anybody, any questions? Anybody opposed? None. The motion is carried. Confirmation of Board of Directors and alternates for the fiscal year 2022-23. The list was circulated. Each of us has a responsibility to ensure that our names are forward. The motion reads to approve the annual nomination report as presented. Can I have a mover, please? Diana? Seconder? Rose, thank you. Anybody opposed? The motion is carried. We need a motion to adopt the report from the chair. The motion to approve the chair's report is presented. A mover, please. Alan, thank you. Seconder? Megan, thank you. Anybody opposed? The motion's carried. The last motion of this part of the morning is the motion to adjourn the formal part of the AGM. So we do need somebody to move adjournment. Megan, thank you. Megan. And seconder is not necessary. Is anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Okay, thank you very much for those that were attending on screen and coming through and being part of the meeting.